In today's show, let's discuss what we learned in preseason, what we're going to watch for in the Blazers' first preseason game, and everything else from the first week of real basketball here in Portland. Welcome to Locked On Trailblazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Blazer beat writer Mike Richmond. Listen to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode, we're going to talk about what we learned from the first week of training camp for the Trailblazers, everything that stood out to us after 1 week of real practice, of formal practice under new head coach Chauncey Billups, and with a new roster. Then I want to talk about, to close the show, what to watch for in the Blazers' first preseason game. They play a preseason game Monday, October 4th. I'm recording this on a Sunday, so we've got a little more than 24 hours when I'm hitting record on this bad boy. But what to watch for in that first preseason game, because I think we can learn some things there. So that's what we're going to do in today's show. First, let's talk about what we learned in camp. I started last week. If you listened to last week's podcast, I kind of laid out some questions that we'd have from training camp. Some of them can't be answered yet. Can't be answered until you start to play games, until you start to make substitutions, until you start to see stuff. This week, one game this week, and then they play a couple more the week after. Like, we'll start to get some of those questions answered. But the big thing I think we've learned from this sort of substantive X and O's thing we've learned from Blazers training camp is that the defense is going to look a little bit different. I don't think wholly different, but there is going to be just a change from the typical drop coverage of the last 5 years of the Terry Stotts era to the Blazers playing higher up on screens. This is a thing that's kind of become a buzzword in Blazerland. Drop coverage has become a cuss. You can be a really good basketball team and play that style of defense. Just ask the Milwaukee Bucks. But here in this our little corner of NBA world, it's become like a cuss word to say, "Oh, drop coverage. They just play drop. It's terrible." So if there is good news to be had, is that the Blazers aren't going to do that, or at least they're going to get away from that for the most part. They're going to play the pick and roll coverage with the screener's man at the level. That means if you set like a 1-5 pick and roll between the point guard and the center who would typically be Yusuf Nurkic for the Trailblazers, instead of dropping 2-3 steps down into the paint, kind of playing center field and catching the driver as they come in, trying to coax teams into playing mid-range or take contested mid-range jumpers. The center or the screener's man, the Yusuf Nurkic in this example, would be up at the level of the screen. So his toes, his heels would be at the same level as the screen is. So when the ball handler comes off the screen, they don't have a little bit of runway to get into a shot. Drop coverage is particularly burned against good shooters like Steph Curry and Damian Lillard of the world. Just absolutely torch drop. You can play it against other teams, but the Blazers are going to move away from that, and I think that's like a big defensive note from the first week of camp. Like, that's an X's and O's, tangible X's and O's change that we're seeing under Chauncey Billups. A lot of the other stuff is kind of buzzwordy, communication, ball movement. Like, we'll see it. We'll see what happens. But this is like truly strategic. You can ask guys to pass, but like the fundamentals of defense really matter. Roy Rogers, who's the Blazers assistant coach, one of Chauncey's lead assistants, is in charge of the defense, and it sounds like he's helping the bigs and the guards sort of get used to this. It is a change. I think some of the problems with drop coverage is that the Blazers guards and Dame in particular just didn't fight over screens particularly well, and then you just kind of leave the big man on an island with two guys coming at him downhill and hoping that someone recovers. I think you get away from that, but the new problem by playing this new style of defense is they just have to be more connected on the backside. If the guy is at the level, then someone has to pull in from the weak side. Someone has to pull in from a little bit closer, like one pass away, to be in slight help position, because you just have to be more connected. If you're not, if you're going to play a slightly more aggressive style of defense or a slightly higher just defensive approach, you just need to be more connected on the backside. And one of the big problems for the Blazers last year is they weren't connected. The big thing of this change will be about communication and connectedness. And last year the Blazers weren't that. But if there's sort of anything else, if there's a thing that has been a big part of the Chauncey Billups era, now a week old or whatever. I mean, he's been around longer, but a week of formal practices and stuff, is that like communication is a big word for him. Is good just communicating, and it's for the most part, it's when we talk about this, it's how he communicates to the guys, like it's how he communicates to the players, and everyone says it's really special, and we really this he's got a real gift, and we'll talk a little about more of that in the second segment, but like he has to instill the value of that communication into their sort of defensive principles. Like you have to talk, you have to help. The Blazers, they tried to play zone last year and they just weren't connected enough to play zone. They got better defensive personnel this year. Replacing Enes Kanter and Carmelo Anthony with Cody Zeller and Larry Nance Jr. should help defensively. Playing more minutes with Norm should help defensively. I think he's a defensive upgrade over what Gary Trent Jr. was. Like they have a chance, even if they didn't change the scheme at all. I thought they were going to be better on defense, and I think this scheme should help them. It's also, and I think this is notable, it's the style that Yusuf Nurkic wanted to play last year. He wants to be, he's big, but he wants to be an athlete. He wants to run around and use his quick feet. He certainly has those quick feet. It's just how much can Nurk chase around the perimeter? I think that's a question. And same with Zeller too. Zeller is capable of it for sure. But again, like he's not going to be asked to play 30 minutes a night, so it's a little bit different of an ask. So I think in general, I like that there is a clear defensive plan. I like that it's a different defensive plan. It would be kind of a bummer to see the Blazers play the same way under a new coach again, although it would be fascinating for sort of the control group sample of this season. But a new defensive plan, slightly more aggressive defense, and one that demands the communication, the connectedness, that just like better help defense, a thing that they weren't good at last year, bad at point of attack defense, and like not a particularly good helping team as a whole. Like that, Robert Covington is maybe the best help defender in the league. So I'm talking more like collectively. So it's, I like this change. I like the idea of the change. I like that there's a specific plan for it. I think, for a week in, it's good that the Blazers are instilling a plan. I'm glad to see the defensive coordinator Roy Rogers is out here instilling what our plan is going to be. Here's our principles. Let's go. Let's teach it. I think it's hard for me to read this as in any way as a negative. It is certainly new and notable, and I think that's the big thing here coming out of training camp. This is our big new notable X's and O's type thing. This is a real new basketball thing coming out of training camp. What I want to talk about in the second segment is kind of the other stuff, the more amorphous stuff, the softer stuff, the less X's and O's, the sort of vibe changes and some other a handful of other personnel things. So that's what we'll do in the second segment as we continue to discuss what we learned from the first week of training camp. The Blazers have had, it's over. I mean, as I'm recording this, training camp has concluded. They had Fan Fest on Saturday night. I missed that one, so I'm not going to give you a recap of Fan Fest, but it's here. Like preseason is here. So what they were able to get done in training camp is gonna matter. They still have time before the season starts. They still got about 2 weeks. So you can still install some more stuff. It's just you got to balance it with playing some exhibition games. But formally, training camp is done. Now it's on to preseason. But in the second segment, let's talk a little bit more about what we learned in that first week of training camp. But before we do that, let's talk about Sleeper. Sleeper is fantasy basketball done right. Look, the fantasy sports experts at Sleeper in 2018, they realized that fantasy basketball was just broken. So what they did was 2 years later, they released a brand new way of playing fantasy basketball. This came out in 2020, and it's called the Game Pick, and it's only available on Sleeper. Here's how it works. In Game Pick, owners pick a single game per week for each starter to count towards the team's total score, ensuring that an even number of games are played between opponents. So the days of losing because your opponent's players simply had more scheduled games to play in that week are over. The days of mindless daily busy work are over. The days of giving up halfway through the season because of that busy work, well, they're over too. In Game Picks, here's what you do. You just pick one game per week for each player on your roster based on the matchups, home versus away meetings, opponent's defensive rating, pace of play in that game, and more. All that adds up to more strategy and less busy work. Doesn't that sound nice? Listen, Sleeper cracked the code on fantasy basketball. So if you play fantasy football or if you prefer building out a weekly strategy versus daily busy work, you're going to love Game Picks. Download the Sleeper app and start a league with your friends today. You won't be disappointed. Today's episode is also brought to you by DirecTV. Listen, I know this sounds familiar. You got one device that lets you catch the games, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings you live TV and on-demand favorites like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contracts. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That's directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. All right. So we talked about the Blazers changing defensive schemes. It might be a subtle one. Like I'll do my best in the early weeks of the season and after game one to kind of point out the differences. Just subtle ones. The man guarding the screener's man is going to be higher up, at the level of the screen. When the screen is set, you're going to have to pinch in on the backside to help that. To account for that, it'll be a subtle change, but I will do my best to kind of map it out for those of you who maybe who don't see it as well, or don't just know about it as well. Like I want this space to be a place where we can learn about the team you love. If you're listening to Locked On Blazers, a daily podcast available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to YouTube. Like you love this team, so I want to get you closer. I want to teach you, how to watch the game closer, how to appreciate what you're watching more. What I want to do in this segment is talk a little bit more about what we learned in training camp. I think that was the big like X's and O's takeaway for me. That's the big strategic takeaway. There's some other stuff kind of bubbling out of camp. Jason Quick wrote a great story this week about Nazir Little playing really well, turning heads and earning playing time. But prior to the training camp beginning, I had projected Naz as number 9 as one of the guys who played every single night. So maybe I was drinking the Kool-Aid before they even served up the Kool-Aid, but. To me, like, yes, he's ready for that year. So read Jason's story. It's in The Athletic. The other thing that came out is Chauncey Billups talking about giving Anfernee Simons more playmaking duties. I think it was kind of, and this is a quick story, and I believe it was written about in the Oregonian as well, but making the point guard, but it didn't sound like Chauncey Billups wants to use that term, and I think that's fair. I mean, I'm not gonna bust anyone about positional terminology, but I think it's a relatively important distinction, or I think it's a distinction worth noting. When Anfernee Simons was like the point guard, when they said like you bring the ball up the court last year, he struggled. He was not good at it, and he wasn't good at it for a variety of reasons. He wasn't good at it because I don't think that second unit had the sort of variety on offense. It was like CJ go, Melo go, Enes Kanter grab rebounds, Ant get in where you fit in, and for a little while, like Gary Trent Jr., like chuck it up if you get an opportunity. Like make sure you shoot it because you're not going to get the ball back. It was just a bunch of dudes who wanted to shoot. You weren't going to give it up and get it back. So there wasn't much playmaking chops on that group. The offense was super ISO heavy, and it just kind of allowed guys to do what they do. And so many of the do what they do guys on that group were scorers and not playmakers. So when they did have Ant run that point guard with the sort of scorers playmakers group, he would either just pass it in and then keep it moving, just like clear out, let Melo do what he wanted, or his handle just wasn't strong. Like he just didn't have. His handle wasn't tight enough. He was getting ripped at midcourt or having trouble just getting into stuff because, guys could keep him away from where he wanted to go and send him away from picks and like not let him get into even just basic actions to set up the offense. Like he struggled. Anfernee Simons is an elite shooter, but he was not a point guard last year. And it sounds like Billups, if he doesn't want to give him that title, in the past, Neil Olshey said, Anfernee Simons is our backup point guard. And it was kind of nonsense at the time. It turned out to not even be an effective plan. I think Simons has taken steps. I think there's a reason to allow him more duties this year. But the idea that he's like a straight up backup point guard is kind of, I think we've seen this movie before, and I'd rather play to a guy's strengths than like demand that his weaknesses sharpen up. Like it doesn't seem like a good way to build a team and build a plan each night. But that's me. I am merely a podcaster with a show that's now available on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Blazers on YouTube. But I like the idea of giving Ant more playmaking duties, and I like the idea of, and as Chauncey said, that it's like if he shares the court with CJ, it's just kind of who gets it is the initiator. Who they can take turns initiating. He doesn't have to be either one. CJ's taken steps as he's gotten older as to become a better playmaker. It's still not like a truly natural part of his game to make like high level passes, but he's much better at it than he's been. Like the last 2 years, he's taken big like serious steps forward in terms of ability to make plays. So I think there's a reason to believe that Ant can do it too. I would like, why I'm bringing up some of the negatives with Ant is I would just point guard. I don't think it's a good idea. Like he's a guard. He's a guard. Let him dribble a little bit, and if he shows his chops and ability to initiate, then let's do it. But you don't need to pigeonhole him in there. And it sounds like Billups, at least from I wasn't at this practice. I watched the interview on YouTube, but it sounds like he it sounds like he doesn't necessarily want Ant to have that label, but he wants Ant to like be a playmaker. He wants Ant to be in the game and play make. And I think one of the keys that Billups has talked about, and I think this kind of helps maybe illuminate my point here a little bit, isn't necessarily like plays and et cetera, et cetera. It's he just wants to get 2 feet in the paint. You get 2 feet in the paint, you force help, you create an advantage on offense, and then you can swing from there. Swing to the corner, they help to the corner, swing back top of the key, they're scrambling, you go. Like and I think Ant maybe more so than kind of like high level read the second layer of the defense, swing opposite type of passing is that like use that athleticism to get 2 feet in the paint, then you're a problem. You're scary. He's got a really good mid-range touch. Like he's not very good around the rim and he's not very good at getting fouled, but really good mid-range touch, has showed flashes of having a little float game. And like you get 2 feet in the paint, you're going to start scaring people. And if you start scaring people, then the help comes, then you can be a playmaker. So like I think Ant, as opposed to like he's the point guard, like to me that ain't it. But like Ant the playmaker and more playmaking responsibilities and playmaking responsibilities to both guard spots and having both spots be responsible for, hey, we've got a created advantage to allow your teammates to then take advantage of the backside or 2 passes away. Now we're ahead of the defense. We got to get guys in the blender and keep them moving. It's not too dissimilar from what the Utah Jazz system is, where they spread you out and they just kind of try to move the ball quickly. And with guys on the perimeter, they run basically a spread pick and roll, but they run different actions. But like their bread and butter, a spread pick and roll, and let Conley and Donovan Mitchell slip into the paint. I see something similar, and if Ant can be part of that mix, leveraging his shooting ability and leveraging that low float game into being dangerous in the middle, I like it. Like to me, that's the move. It's not Ant as point guard. It's Ant as advantage creator. Other things from camp before we get into preseason is that like undeniable, and I think I should address it here, is that when Chauncey Billups talks about basketball, he is a sharp mind with compelling ideas. Like when I have listened to him speak about basketball, I get excited hearing him talk about the sport, hearing him talk about the ideas. Like I'm a basketball nerd, y'all. I'm a dork. I love this stuff. I led with pick and roll coverage in this podcast. Like this is my ish. So I just like it has to hear Chauncey talk about basketball this week has been he's really compelling. He's just a compelling guy. Like he is a sharp basketball mind. And I think that's one of my big takeaways from training camp is like, okay, this dude's got an idea. Like he's got a real plan. He's been super impressive. The other thing, it's just like this time of year, everyone's like incredibly positive. So like, I don't want to take every story and be like, hey, Nurk loves this. Norm's loving it. CJ's loving it. It's like everyone's super positive this time of year. So while that's better than the alternative, there's certainly some camps around the league where people aren't feeling super positive. So I don't mean to like diminish that, but the vibes are good. They haven't lost any games. they're practicing and guys are hearing what they want to hear because as they figure it out, it's like, here's how you fit. Here's our idea. Like the vision is being communicated and people like the vision. I think that part's important. People like the vision. Guys are buying into the vision. They enjoy what the coaching staff is laying out in front of them to say, all right. But like, other than just like good vibes, the like, we'll see. I want to dial it back on like I just want to like put in perspective, like everyone's hyper positive this time of year. So, of course. But like I said, if dudes are excited because when they hear Billups talk, they like what he says, add me to that list, because when I hear him talk, I like what he says. He's got a compelling basketball mind. So that positivity also is coming from this little corner of North Portland, as well as out in Tualatin, where the practice facility is. All right, on Monday evening, October 4th, if you're listening to this then, tonight, y'all, Blazers play a preseason game. It's not that important. Like the game itself and the results itself aren't that important. But what I want to talk about in the third segment is how to watch it, what I'm going to watch for, what in a game that truly doesn't matter. What is sort of important for us to watch for and take away, and that's what we'll do in the third segment. But before we do that, I want to tell y'all about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that there is. Simple as that. It's a delicious protein bar. It's better than all the others you're gonna find. Comes in amazing flavors, something for everybody's palate, like mint brownie, salted caramel, jumbo chocolate. A personal favorite of mine, cookies and cream. Or if you're into the fruit flavors, they got things like raspberry and cherry barcia. Look, they're all delicious. Great soft, chewy texture, like a candy bar, covered in 100% real chocolate. But they also pack a punch: 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and no more than 5 grams of net carbs. All tasty, all healthy. Go get yourself some. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15. You get 15% off your next order. That is built.com. Promo code is LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your next order. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. We talked about in the first two segments about Blazers training camp. Defense is a little bit different. The vibes are good, and playmaking is at a premium, with Anfernee Simons getting another chance to play a big role as a playmaker. If it doesn't work out, I think the system can cover up for some of those shortcomings, but the system, as clearly communicated by Chauncey Billups, people are liking it, including this very podcaster, saying all the things you want to hear. I am fascinated, like truly fascinated. I'm just like, I don't want time to speed up or whatever, because I've lost a lot of time over the last 18 months. But like, I'm ready for the game to start. I want to see this. I want to see this experiment in action. But the Blazers are going to play a fake game in a little more than 24 hours as I'm recording this. First preseason game against the Golden State Warriors on Monday night. The results of the game, even the box score, doesn't matter. This year, I'm going to try to be better about recapping games. I've been in the past a little resistant to recapping games. I'm probably not going to recap preseason too much because the games don't matter. But they don't, like, the results don't matter. The numbers don't matter. But I think there are important things to watch. And I want to talk about here to close the show, like how I will watch preseason. You can watch it however you want. You can just watch who's fun. You can just try to find out who's fun and who you like, or what kind of shoes Larry Nance Jr. wears, what kind of gear does Cody Zeller wear. Like, you can just get to know the guy's vibe and look and whatever. But here's how I am going to watch it. And I think this is a helpful way to kind of how we can best learn from preseason. The first thing is that I'm looking for actions, not plays. And what I mean by that is that the Blazers have installed a bunch of new stuff this offseason. They've installed, and some the offense comes with new versions from the old regime, the defense as well. The defense, you can kind of like see scheme right away. So it's like, watch how they do it. But like on offense, I'm not watching for plays. I'm not going to say like, oh, they ran this, and here's the, like, I'm watching for repeatable actions. And what I mean by that is, when the point guard comes down the floor and they enter the ball to the wing, or they pass the ball to the wing, is there an automatic? Do they go somewhere after that? Or do they, do they flow through the lane and kick out to the weak side, like swing out to the far corner? Or if you don't enter to the wing, if you enter to the elbow, does that change which way you go? Like, I want repeatable actions more so than plays. Like, plays are a collection of a bunch of different actions. And that's kind of how they're usually taught in the league, is like, we run this action on this side, and we're going to run that in these 4 different sets. We run a similar action like this. But I think those repeatable actions, like, okay, how do the Blazers treat if the ball is here and the defense is here? How do the Blazers typically treat it? If it's kind of like stand around and figure it out, then they're still working out the kinks, and we won't overreact to that. I mean, I might overreact to it. I reserve the right to overreact if I want. But Like those repeatable actions, those matter to me. The other thing is just the pace. How fast do they play? This has been a big thing. Is the Blazers want to play faster? They want to move the ball and all those things. Pace to me doesn't mean transition. It does not mean fast breaks. It does not mean grabbing a rebound and running. That is not what pace means. That's nice. That's a part of pace. You'd like to see them play faster and get easy baskets for sure. But to me, pace is just how quickly do you get into your stuff? Do you walk the ball up the court? And when you walk the ball up the court, do you then have to tell guys to get there and then you get into it with 14 on the clock? Or do you try to get into something, it doesn't work, and you run a high pick and roll? The Blazers had so much of that last year where it's like, call something, oh, first action doesn't work, split it off, screw it. Nurk, come set a pick and roll, let's go. Just the pace of stuff. How quickly do they get into actions? How quickly do the guys without the ball sort of get down the floor and get into their spots to get into the flow? Like pace is really it's been a big thing. Like they've played slow understats, and Damian Lillard teams have not run traditionally. I don't think one preseason game is going to change my mind too much, but this coaching staff has talked about playing a little bit faster, and I want to see if that pace is there. Those are the two big things. Like repeatable actions, as most of plays, like how much sort of repeatable stuff do we see that'll kind of, could end up being part of like the Blazers go-tos, something that they just like, this gets us a bucket, let's try this look. And how quickly do they play? Things I won't watch: substitution patterns. Like, I don't think Dame's going to play a whole game. So if Lillard's not in for a normal substitution pattern, then it doesn't matter. We'll pay attention to the first subs and what the first rotation looks like, because that might be generally similar. But I won't pay attention to groupings too much. I won't pay attention to who subs and when, and who plays together and who doesn't play, and if Marquise Chris plays ahead of Patrick Patterson, or if Dennis Smith Jr. plays ahead of Quinn Cook. It's like, I'm just not gonna. I won't read too much into it, and that's why I said it doesn't matter, because like they're still figuring it out, and it's unclear to me how much ever the production in preseason matters. Coaches see so much. They've already seen you play pickup. They've already seen you in. They've already seen you in practice. They've talked to you in film. They've watched you during when you're watching film. What you see, what you ask. Like there's so much more of the assessment than like. Did the shot go in, or like stuff like that in preseason that's a little bit fluky and random in these like really small minutes with new pairings and all stuff like that. So I'm not going to overreact to substitutions. I think that would be a mistake. I won't overreact necessarily to, like, I'll pay attention immediately to sort of how the defense looks, but if the defense is bad, I'm not going to that's box score stuff to me, like how well the other team does. Last year the Blazers were really bad in preseason and immediately carried over to the regular season. So I'm not saying there's nothing to it. It's just like it's after 4 preseason games, if they look crappy, then I'll we'll call a spade. Like we'll say what it is. But game 1, I think the look for is more is the how do they do it, as opposed to what do they do? What are they after? Like, are they playing quickly? Are they running certain types of actions? How are they getting their shots? Not did the shot go in? Not what did they score? What did Nurk do? It's like I want to pay more attention to the recipe than the cake. That's to me, that's going to be more important in game 1. We'll ramp it up, and I'm going to attend the game. I believe that's kind of an early promise in this one, but I'm going to ask Chauncey some questions I have about kind of preseason and all this stuff, and I will share sort of those thoughts with you, how he's going to treat the exhibition season and minutes for his stars and what he hopes to get out of it and all those things. He's I'm excited to see the team up close. I'm excited to be back in the arena. I'm excited to learn from a new group. One of the things I liked most about being a reporter is getting closer to the team, and then being able to bring you, dear listener or dear YouTube viewer, closer to the team with me. Like I want to bring you in there with me. I want to learn as much stuff as I can about the team, and then peel back the curtain a little bit, or just like, allow you to see what I see, allow you to learn as I learn. I love basketball, and I want you to love it, not the way I do, but as much as I do. an important part of this whole podcast is that your joy is deeply important, but your joy is also yours. So I'm excited for the preseason just to see it in action, but I don't think it matters. I'm excited for the regular season because then when the games matter and it's all there, then um, the flowers and smiles and smooches from camp kind of go out the window. The lovey-dovey stuff is gone because it's winning time, and I'm just fascinated to see what kind of what winning time looks like for this group, what the sort of focus looks like for this group when you throw out all the good vibes and you have to win games. But we've got a long way to go to get there, and it starts with that preseason game. So what let's check back after that one. That game's on Monday night. I'll have a show for you that'll post on Tuesday following that. We're gonna push mailbag back one day just because of how it works. So mailbag I'm gonna record it on Tuesday evening, and it'll post on Wednesday. We've got an interview with Casey Holdahl of Trailblazers.com next week. I'm still trying to nail down one more interview next week. If you're an astute listener to the show, you might know who it is. But all that is to say, it was a fun week of basketball, fun week of podcasts, fun week of videos here on YouTube. So do me a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I say this, I'm going to say this a bunch. I'm going to continue pressing this until we get there. It's like, if you listen this deep in the episode, you're enjoying you've enjoyed what you heard, or at least you've listened long enough. You've given a half hour of your life to this. So subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe on YouTube. It's a great way to grow the show. It's really it would be a wonderful way to support me, and I would truly appreciate it. As always, we're available wherever you get podcasts. You can tell your friends to search wherever they already get podcasts. Just search Locked On Blazers, and we will be right there waiting for you. Great shows this week, so make sure you come back and listen. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.